I'm excited to be here with you today. Will y'all stand to your feet and worship with us? I'm stepping past the fear and doubt, and there's nothing that can hold me down, 'cause I know you're working for my good. Now I'm all in and nothing less, 'cause I know it all comes down to this, that you are a promise-keeping God. I got this joy deep in my soul. It's rising up in me. I got this joy that overflows. It's pouring out, never been so great. It's the glory of amazing grace. It's the end result of all my faith, overcome by the wonder of it all. Oh, 1,000 words cannot explain, and a world of troubles couldn't tame. You're the joy that makes me come alive. I got this joy deep in my soul. It's rising up in me. I got this joy that overflows. It's pouring out. I've never been so great. I've got this joy, the greatest strength I know. I've got this joy, never gonna let it go. I've got this joy, the greatest strength I know. I've got this joy, never gonna let it go. I've got this joy, the greatest strength I know. I've got this joy, never gonna let it go. I've got this joy, the greatest strength I know. I got this joy. Hey, I got this joy deep in my soul. It's rising up in me. I got this joy that overflows. It's pouring out. I've never been so great. Hallelujah, 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 oh hallelujah. I've never been so great. Hallelujah, hallelujah, oh hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I've never been so great.
Come on, let's keep celebrating our God. Let's sing a new song together today. Let's remember who our God is to us and say, this is our God. Amen. Remember those walls that we call sin and shame. They were like prisons we could never escape. But he came and he died and he rose. Those walls are rubble now. Remember those giants we call death and grave. They were like mountains that stood in our way. But he came and he died and he rose. Those giants are dead now. Now we declare who our God is, and we say, this is our God, this is who he is. He loves us. This is our God, this is what he does. He saves us. He bore the cross, beat the grave, let heaven and earth proclaim, this is our God, King Jesus. Remember that fear that took our breath sin. Nobody but Jesus, who pulled me out of that pit. He did, who paid for all of our sin. No. Who rescued me from that grave. Yahweh, Yahweh, who gets the glory and praise. Nobody but Jesus, who rescued me from that grave. Yahweh, Yahweh, who gets the glory and praise. Nobody but Him. This is our God. This is who He is. He loves us. This is our God. This is what He does. He saves us. He bore the cross, beat the grave. Let heaven and earth proclaim. This is our God, King Jesus. He bore the cross, beat the grave. Let heaven and earth proclaim. This is our God, King Jesus. Oh, you're King Jesus. You are King Jesus. Amen. Amen. Celebrate our God. This is our God. We celebrate Him. Hey, why don't you high five somebody and tell them, I like that song. You may be seated.
Good morning. I am so happy to be here today, so happy that you are here joining us. You are in for a fabulous morning. If it is your first time with us, or you have never touched base with us and have a conversation going with us, I would ask you to grab your phone, text the word connect to 210-817-8121. That'll hook you up with the guest connections, and we can just get to know you a little bit, see if there's anything we can do for you. In a few minutes, the ushers are going to come forward to take up an offering. In the meantime, you have several options on ways that you can give at Crosspoint. You can do it automatically. You can do it online. If you would like to this morning, using that same phone number, it's 210-817-8121. And this time, put the word give in, and you'll be able to do an offering that way. This morning, we are finishing up our series of true stories. You've already heard a couple of fabulous stories if you've been here the last 2 weeks. If you haven't been here, I strongly recommend that you go back and you watch them online. They are in several different places you can find them. The easiest thing is on YouTube. Today, you are in for a great treat. Dylan Amberson is going to share his story with us. I've gotten just a sneak peek of that story, just in conversation with him over the last few months. It is fabulous. God has worked miracles in his life and uses him in absolutely incredible ways. So you are in for a treat this morning. Right after this service, we have our Backstage Pass. If you have not been to the Backstage Pass, it's a great opportunity for you to meet the staff. You'll get a tour of the campus. You'll find out a little bit of the history. You'll find out the vision of the church. And if you're interested in becoming a member, this is what you need to do to become a member. It's free lunch, childcare, right after church. So if you haven't signed up, you can just show up. A week from today is baptism. 1 week from today. We'll be baptizing at both services. If for one reason or another you can't or don't want to be baptized here at church on Sunday morning, there are some other options available for you. Either way, you can either stop at the Next Steps booth and talk to them to find out more information about baptism, or that same phone number, 210-817-8121, and just type in the word baptism, and somebody will get back with you to discuss that a little bit further and get the information that you need. This Friday, ladies, is our Bling Women's Ministry doing the Le Party. It will be an opportunity to spend time with women. It's our Mother's Day event. It's always fabulous. Anything the Bling team does is absolutely fabulous, so you don't want to miss it. The sign-up deadline is tomorrow. So if you haven't done that yet, please do it. It is $15. Childcare is available upon request. So just don't assume that they'll have a spot for your child. You need to make sure you go ahead and get that signed up. And for the children, we have Kids Crazy Community Party, KCCP. Notice crazy is in the name. It is a crazy fun afternoon for your children. It is from 3 to 6. Nate Bertholter, who is a Ninja Warrior, will be here. We'll have water slides. We'll have an obstacle course. It is just a fun time for your children. They can invite friends. It's a great opportunity for your friends to invite friends who might not go to church anywhere to come hang out with them, hear about Christ, hear how wonderful Christ is, and just a fun opportunity for that to take place. We also still need some volunteers for that. Now, if you want to volunteer and you're like, but I don't really like to be around kids, that's okay. Okay? We have registration. We have snacks. Now, this is with kids helping with recreation in the water slides. Or if you do really love kids and you just want to be surrounded by them all afternoon, we have people that walk around in their small group and hang out with just a set group. Did I say parking? There's all sorts. If you're doing parking, you don't even need to talk to a kid, okay? So there's lots of opportunities for everybody to help out that afternoon. Men, your 3M event is coming up. It is May 21st. Now, this is the big steak night. It's $15 a person. But do you have a friend that you'd really like to have come to Forge with you? And do you want to look like the super cool friend? If they haven't been to a Forge event before, you can say, hey, come on, I'll treat you for dinner. But here's the thing, it's not going to cost you any more. If they haven't been here for Forge before, then they can come and you're paying 2 for 1. So you pay, they come for free, and you look like you're really cool. And I won't tell them that they didn't have to pay. You didn't have to pay for them. So we'll keep that, our little secret, so you'll look super cool. Okay, let's go ahead and pray. The ushers are going to come forward for our offering. God, we thank you for Crosspoint. We thank you for the way that you use our church. God, we lift up our offering to you right now. Pray that you would just use it to bring glory to you, to reach out and more people learn about you. Lift up our service. Pray for Dylan as he comes to speak for us. In Christ's name, amen.
Was rich, I remember who I was. I was lost, I was blind, I was running out of time. Sin separated, the breach was far too wide. But from the far side of the chasm, you had me in your sight. So you made a way across the great divide, left behind heaven's throne to build it here inside. And there at the cross, you paid the debt I owed, broke my chains, freed my soul. For the first time I hope. Thank you, Jesus, for the blood applied. Thank you, Jesus, it has washed me white. Thank you, Jesus, you have saved my life, brought me from the darkness into glorious light. You took my place, you laid inside my tomb of sin. You were buried for 3 days, but then you walked right out again. And now death has no sting, us into glorious light.
When did I start to forget all the great things that you did? When did I throw away faith for the impossible? How did I start to believe you weren't sufficient for me? Why do I talk myself out of seeing miracles? Come on, let's believe this together. You are more than able. Start seeing it in your life. Start declaring it. You are more than able. You are more than able. You are more than able. Who am I to deny what the Lord can do? Oh, you can do it.
Now I see all that I have. Oh, I've got my confidence back. I put my trust in the one who still does miracles.
You do miracles. You are more than able. 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 Who am I to deny what the Lord can do?
Can you imagine, with all of the faith in the room, what the Lord can do? What the Lord can do? It's gonna happen. Just let the way make it through. He's gonna move. Yeah, he's gonna move. Can you imagine, with all of the faith in the room, what the Lord can do? What the Lord can do? And it's gonna happen. Just let the way make it through. He's gonna move. Yeah, he's gonna move. Can you imagine, with all of the faith in the room, what the Lord can do? What the Lord can do? And it's gonna happen. Just let the way make it through. He's gonna move. Yeah, he's gonna move. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. Who am I to deny what the Lord can do? Anything is possible. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. Who am I to deny what the Lord can do? One more time, say anything. Anything is possible. Oh, you better believe it. Anything is possible. Absolutely anything. Anything is possible.
love's riches, he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with all the Lord's holy people, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us, to him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen.
You are more than able. You are more than able. You are more than able. Only you are. You are more than able. Who am I to deny what the Lord can do?
Well, today we're going to be finishing up our series called True Stories. And it was a couple of years ago, maybe a little over 3 years ago, I got to hear Dylan's story, and we got to spend some time together in a journey group together for a semester as well, and get to know each other a little bit that way as well. But Dylan has just an incredible story of where he's come from, where God's brought him from, and where he is today. And so you're going to be in for a special treat. But I want to tell you that Dylan actually found community at Crosspoint before he ever stepped foot into the doors of Crosspoint. Because, see, his connection into Crosspoint was a little different because, see, who he was dating was actually part of a journey group already, and he wasn't coming to the church or the journey group, and, you know, that he had a great excuse for why you couldn't join their group. That night was tied up for you, and you couldn't go, and lo and behold, the journey group was so intentional in trying to get him there, they said, we'll change our night, and they did. And he lost his excuse, and he went in, and he really did. He found community, and he found a group of people that just love him and that he loves. And so as you listen to his story, I think you're going to be able to hear a pin drop, because what he is going to share with you is just so incredible when you get to hear about where he's come from and where God has him. Dylan, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Will. How's everybody doing today? Well, my name is Dylan Amberson, as my buddy said, and to be honest with you guys, I'm as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs right now. Like, I normally don't dress like this. For those of y'all that know me, I usually have shorts and flip-flops and a ball cap and maybe a t-shirt, maybe a pullover or whatever, but I'm usually a little more relaxed than this today. So, but when I was in college, I took a class for public speaking, and the professor or teacher or whatever, she said, never tell your audience that you're nervous, because it'll detract from the message. And the truth of the matter is I am really nervous. But this is kind of how I break through all that, because the truth of the matter is if I can't be honest with you about how I feel right here and right now, I don't know how you guys are going to believe anything that comes out of my mouth for the next 30, 35 minutes. And so I just take a little second here to kind of put my thoughts together, and then we'll get started. Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to be here. It's an honor and a privilege to do this kind of stuff. Anytime I have an opportunity to be an active participant in somebody's life by sharing my experience, strength, and hope, I'm humbled. I remember when Will asked me to do this, it was months ago, and he was just toying with the idea, and I didn't really put a whole lot of stock into it. And then about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, he's like, all right, you're good to go, right? And I was like, sure. And so here, but anyway, let me just start in the beginning, man. I'm going to talk a little bit about what my life was like, what happened, and what my life's like today. And so I'm going to go back to my childhood. Not that I blame my parents for what happened. My parents did the best they could with what they had at that time. I don't hold anything against them. They didn't do anything wrong in my eyes. If I'd have wanted better parents, I couldn't have found them. And that's my truth today. And so growing up, what I remember, I used to watch the news with my dad, and I would sit in his lap. And what I remember from that is not so much what the political climate was or who was winning what sports or what college football team was on top of the world. Probably UT if I had to guess. But what I remember sitting in my dad's lap was having a sense of security and safety and being loved. And, like nothing, my childhood, I can't look to one thing that was bad about it. There was no abuse, no physical, mental, verbal, no sexual abuse. There was nothing like that. But that marriage ended. I remember the day my dad picked me up and he sat me on his knee and he said I had to go to work, and I didn't see him again until I was 13. I was probably 4 or 5 years old at that time. And I have a couple of pictures of what life used to look like prior to that divorce. This is probably as close as I'll ever be to a Cowboys fan. So just to let you guys know, I got my little puppy. So I had a buddy. I was an only child. And in this picture here at Christmas, just remember this picture, because this is exactly how I am, even today. And I have some pictures later on that I'll show you to verify that. When my parents divorced, man, it rocked my world. I mean, it would, any child. My sense of security and safety was ripped. I didn't know how to handle that. And I don't know many 5-year-olds that do. I went to counseling and therapy, and I did all that stuff. And they kept saying, quit blaming yourself. It's not your fault. You look at the timeline, things were good. I came along, then they're not. I mean, it's pretty easy math. You know what I mean? Later in life, it was easy to put that together. But the truth of the matter is my dad was a drug addict and an alcoholic. And there's a couple things that I want you guys to know about drug addicts and alcoholics. And the first is, those that are in active addiction, whether it's drinking or drugs, there's nothing that will stand in the way between them and another pill, fix, or drink. Nothing. Not a child, not a judge, not a job, not her, him, nothing will stand in the way. And I learned that lesson very, very early on, even though I didn't quite understand what I was going through at that time. And so, like I said, I didn't see my mom, I didn't see my dad again until I was 13. And, I love my mom. I'm going to go get her. I may go get her tonight, or I may go get her Monday, but I'm going to drive her around to her doctor's appointments, like driving Miss Daisy. And so she lives out on a ranch out west of Kerrville. So, but my mom tried. And I know Will's favorite genre is country music, so I used a lyric from a song by Merle Haggard called Mama Tried. And in that song, he says, despite all my Sunday learning, towards the bad I kept a turning. No one could steer me right, but Mama tried. My mom remarried when I was about 9 or 10, and I never gave my stepdad a chance to be a man in my life. I was so wrapped up in selfishness that I wasn't getting my mother's undivided attention. I just tried everything I could to get them to divorce so I could get my mom back. But at that time, man, I was going to church every Sunday, going to Sunday school, going to service. Every Wednesday, we were going to, they had a little dinner type of deal, and then we would do youth group stuff. I was a member of Royal Ambassadors. We played softball against other churches. We ran track and field. We go to camp. I've been to Glorietta. It's a great experience if you've never been. But none of that stuff really took hold or had any kind of meaning to me other than it was just something to do on Monday or Wednesday or Thursday or whatever day we met. And just like that song says, man, despite all my Sunday learning, towards the bad I kept a turning. Let me put it to you like this. If I didn't come home, I'm going to tell you my age, I'm 49, but if I didn't come home with a paddle permit from school by the third day, my mom would call the principal, and I'd have to go get that paddle permit and take it home and get it signed. And I always felt like since I had to do all that, I might as well get some use out of it. So I stayed in the principal's office. I was always getting licks at school. I was a class clown, and I was always trying to be disruptive. But about the age of 10, probably about the age of 12 time frame, I remember being mad at God. And I remember thinking, I'm done. I'm going to go play for the other team. What I really want in life is all the sex, drugs, and rock and roll I can handle. And if I have all that, I'll get all the power, money, power, and prestige that will make me successful in life. And I really believe that. And so I just quit. I quit on that relationship with God. What I remember about that was that there was a physical separation. I didn't have that sense of security and safety and love anymore. And I felt rejected. I'm not saying that that's something that came from God, but there are consequences for choices that we make in life. And even though that didn't hold any water with me at that time, because I knew that there was something was going to happen because I was going to go play for the other team, it didn't take me long before all the unintended negative consequences began to take hold in my life. At the age of 13, I was arrested for being a runaway. Not a year later, I went to a treatment center for drug and alcohol abuse. Now at 13, I mean, you can only do what you can do. We had a bunch of cases of Lone Star beer in a can in the garage here in San Antonio. And so that's where I would steal my beer from. So anybody that's ever drank Lone Star, you already know it's pretty rough as it is. But after it's been sitting in the garage in the middle of July, I don't know how we choked that stuff down, but we did. And so, it was never about how much I drank. I've always tried to drink as much as I could get my hands on. I've been so drunk I couldn't lay on the floor. You know what I mean? But I'd like to tell you that coming out of that treatment center, I had an aha moment where I said, Eureka, I should probably quit drinking. But what happened was I had found my father, and I had made a deal with him that if I could move in with him, if I could make mom happy, I could move in with him. And so just so you know, mom's got a master's degree in mathematics with a minor in environmental science. She worked for the phone company back when it was Southwestern Bell for, 587 years or something like that. And then she retired and became the department head of Tafoya Middle School's math department. And then she retired from that. Now she manages a 600-acre ranch out past Kerrville. Dad, on the other hand, was a little more abstract. He liked to smoke pot, listen to Pink Floyd. So it was no secret as to where I needed to go. So I made that power move. I stayed sober for about 2.5 years, and I ended up moving in with my dad. Probably 5 months later, I was on my way to the penitentiary for the first time. 17 years old, 5 months after my 17th birthday, burglary of a habitation involvement with organized crime. I tried to tell the judge it wasn't very organized because we were standing in front of him, but he didn't think that was very funny. They gave me a 10-year probated sentence because I'd never been arrested before in my life. Been in trouble plenty of times, but I'd never been arrested. But I was still in high school. I made the front page of the newspaper. I was living in San Marcos. And if you don't know anything about San Marcos in the late 80s, the late 80s, early 90s, Southwest Texas, as it was called back then, was known for not graduating folks, but partying. It was the #1 party school in the nation. And so, you could walk down the street and hit a party. So getting what I wanted was very easy for me. And I continued to do that kind of stuff. 4 months after getting that prison sentence or that probated sentence, I had 28 violations and I was on my way to the penitentiary for the first time. And I'd like to tell you, Eureka, I've had enough. I should probably quit drinking, but that isn't the case. I got out of prison with a guy who did 8 calendar years on a 25-year sentence, and I asked him to go buy us some Budweiser Tall Boys. And he did. And the police showed up. The sheriff showed up while we were sitting there drinking. I'm 18 years old, ain't been out of prison 45 minutes, and I'm talking to the police with a beer in my hand. I couldn't bring into my mind with sufficient force the intended pain and suffering of even a week, an hour, or a month ago of what my drinking had led me to. I was consumed with the obsession that I had to have another drink, another pill, another whatever. I'm as just as big as a drug addict. My favorite drug of choice is what you got. I'm the type of guy, you'd have told us birth control would have got us high. We'd have crushed it up and shot it. That's just how I am. And I know that might come as a shock, but that's exactly how I was. I did not care. If it would have changed the way I felt, we were doing it. I didn't care. And so I don't quite understand how I managed to finish that parole sentence. I had an 8-year sentence from 92 to 2002, but I did. I got violated twice and went to a parole violator facility twice, and then I went to a substance abuse felony punishment facility once. But I've been in and out of jail probably more times there's fingers and toes in here. PI, disorderly conduct, misdemeanor escape. I got out of a police car one night in handcuffs. Whiskey bent, you know what I mean? I thought it was a good idea. They didn't. They hog-tied me and threw me back in the car. For those 8 years, man, it was just crazy. It's amazing to me that I didn't kill myself. It is just amazing. But, the first thing I ever completed in life was that parole sentence, was that prison sentence. And so I remember in the end of the 90s, I had bought a 73 El Camino SS with a bored-out 350. I love that car, man. I love that car so much I slept in it. There it is right there. It didn't look like much, but, man, Etta Brock top to bottom, performance push rod and lifters, bored-out 30 over, flathead pistons, all that great stuff. I worked at a Firestone at the time, so we could do a lot of stuff to that car. And we did, and everybody used to say, man, you're going to kill yourself in that car if you keep drinking the way you're drinking, but I didn't pay much attention to them. But, at that time of my life, man, I had this car. I say I love that car so much I slept in it because when I was homeless, that was my home. But I had the best paying job that I'd ever had in my life. I was working for a Firestone, like I said, making $10 an hour, so I don't want to make it seem like it was super, super duper, but, I had a few dollars in the account. I had a job, I had my car, and I had everything that I thought that I needed to be happy in life. And I was really just dead on the inside, and I was trying to fill that God-sized hole with whatever I could get my hands on. I finished that prison sentence, and I remember thinking, well, I'm off, no supervision. It's all good now. The state of Texas is in trouble. And so I continued to do the things that I had always done, and I continued to get in trouble. Thanksgiving of 2000, I was in Seguin, Texas. I had an aunt that lived down there. My grandfather was still alive on my dad's side, so it was my aunt and her kids, my cousins and their kids, and my dad and my grandfather. And we were doing Thanksgiving lunch, and so we had a glass of wine. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'll drink just about anything, but I don't like wine. It makes me feel like I've been drug around by a Mack truck. Usually because I drink like a gallon or so, maybe, you know what I mean? So maybe we're not supposed to do a gallon at a time, but anyway, I remember I had a couple glasses of wine, and then we drank. I couldn't even tell you how much beer we drank watching the football games. And I remember thinking to myself, I got to go out to see my parents for Thanksgiving. So I was going to drive from Seguin, Texas, out to a little town called Rock Springs. It's about an hour west of Kerrville. And I remember thinking, man, I'm not going to drink. I've been drinking all day. I just won't drink till I get there. And the other thing, the second thing I want you guys to know about this thing called addiction is it'll change your mind without your permission. I could tell you what I intended every day not to do, and then I would go do it. And I would be filled with the guilt, shame, and remorse and go through that moral whipping of what's wrong with you, where is your character, you said you weren't going to do that, and it would just be this vicious cycle. And the only thing I knew how to take care of all that was, wouldn't a drink be nice? Let me just drink this and just go into oblivion, and we'll just suck it up, make another pack of lies, and start again tomorrow. And that's just kind of how I lived my life probably the last 5 or 6 years before what I'll call the incident. We'll get to that in a minute. But I left Seguin and I drove to New Braunfels. I put gas in the car and I bought a 12-pack of Budweiser Tall Boys. Changed my mind without my permission. I put gas in the car and I said, I'm not going to drink till I get to the ranch. I'm good. And somewhere along the way, I started drinking. And what I remember about that night was the thought came to me that if I had a wreck and I died, that I would be just another drunk that died on another holiday in the state of Texas. Thrilling words for a guy who thought he had everything he needed to be happy. And I remember I pushed that thought away, and then it came back, and so I thought, well, I'll just wait till an 18-wheeler comes down. I was on Highway 290 out past Stonewall, Texas. If anybody knows where that's at, it's out there by Lyndon B. Johnson's ranch. Maybe it's before, maybe it's after. I don't really remember. I was a little drunk the last time I was out there. So what I thought was an 18-wheeler that was coming looked like a good enough target, and I made a conscious decision to pull in front of that vehicle. That vehicle turned out to be a Ford F-250. It hit me in the passenger side and spun me completely around. And I was T-boned by a Chevy Suburban at least 75 miles an hour. And this is what that looked like. I have no idea how I survived this. I didn't have seatbelts in the car because I had just reupholstered the floorboards. I wasn't supposed to walk away from this. My buddy says when God's got work, the walls come down. That's what I looked like back in the day. Don't laugh too much. Blonde hair, blonde goatee. The DPS officer said he asked for a breathalyzer and I refused. They said I rode in a helicopter. I don't remember any of that. What I remember was that when I came to, I was in a hospital room in Austin, Texas at Breckenridge Hospital. I had a little triangle above me and a hospital gown with a catheter, and I reached over and I picked up the phone and I called my buddy and I said, I don't know where I'm at, but you need to come get me. I can't stay here. And I was so full of fear because I know that I had done something to somebody that I couldn't undo. And I'd like to tell you, like, Eureka, maybe I should quit drinking. But if you're an alcoholic like me, and your only solution is to have another drink, why would you stop? It was bad enough sober. I couldn't imagine it, trying to not drink. And so I continued to drink for another 18 months. It's funny how God works. I was driving down the road in my buddy's car. He was out at Burning Man. So if anybody doesn't know what Burning Man is, you can Google it later. It's a big old festival out in the desert. But I was doing some work to his car. It was raining, and I threw a cigarette butt out of the window, and I got pulled over for littering. And I was like, it's raining. He's like, well, you could start a fire. I was like, not sure that's how physics work or whatever. But anyway, they ran my name, and I had a warrant for intoxicated assault. So they arrested me. That's how I was arrested. I ended up going to the second smallest county jail in the state of Texas, Blanco County. It's licensed to hold 7 people. I made a bond. They set a court date. And then the same man that walked out on me all those years ago, we had, from the time of 13 to this time, I was 28, those 15 years, we had fostered a relationship, and I was, we were all right. But I asked him to come take me to court because I just wanted to make sure that I was going to get there. And that last night that we were together before I went to court, he asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, Dad, all I really want to do is drink. And the look of disgust and disappointment on him is something I will never forget for the rest of my life. But that's all I did. I woke up the next morning, went into court. I was given a 10-year sentence. They made it aggravated. They said my vehicle was a weapon. And so I'd have to do 50% of my sentence before parole eligibility. And I was marched off to jail, to prison for the second time on January the 26th of 2002. I remember being in that little cell. If you've never been in a jail cell where it's just you, just you and your thoughts, I didn't have access to my solution anymore, and so I was just forced to sit there with my thoughts. And I don't know what made me do it, but I remember I bowed my head and I prayed to a God that I didn't even believe in. Whatever you want me to do, please just make this stop. I can't live like this anymore. It was probably a week later, and two little old men from a 12-step program showed up, and they had a little meeting. We shared a little bit, and one of those little old men handed me a book and said, sounds like you've had a little trouble with drinking. You might want to read this book. And that's how I made my humble beginnings. There's a line in that book that says, what was once thought a flimsy reed has turned out to be the loving and powerful hand of God. And when I look back through my life through that time, I could see how he was guiding me to make those decisions and putting those people in my life that I needed. And I wouldn't even acknowledge it at the time. I ended up going to the Travis State Jail first for a little transit time, and then I went to Hutchins State Jail, and then I went to Holiday, and then I did the midnight run, what I call the midnight run to the Cofield unit out in Tennessee Colony. Now, if you don't know where Tennessee Colony is, it's about 40 minutes west of Palestine. It's out in the middle of nowhere. There's 5 prisons on that chunk of land, and they say you can run for about 3 days and never get off of state property. I'll tell you the story about the picture right here. But catch me in the Next Steps area, and I'll tell you about it. I was trying not to laugh, but anyway, I know it doesn't look like it. Well, we took this picture like at 4 in the morning. But anyway, another whole nother story. But anyway, I got to the Cofield unit, and I just tried to do the best I could with what was outlined in that book. I tried to live that kind of life to the best of my ability. I met a couple guys that were trying to do the same thing. One of those guys said, I'm going to write to the Dallas area and see if I can get some people to come out here and help chaperone a meeting for us. And I thought, there's no way people are going to drive all the way out here 3 hours, come hang out with a bunch of hairy-legged convicts and have a 12-step meeting. I just don't see it happening. But I thought about Shawshank Redemption, where the warden said, you write your letters and I'll put a stamp on them. And so he did. And I put a stamp on them. And those guys came. Complete strangers. Got up at the butt crack of dawn and drove out there and come hung out with us, a bunch of hairy-legged convicts, and spoon-fed us what this 12-step program had to offer. You know, and that second step in them 12 steps says that I come to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I came to, and I came to believe. You know, in the beginning, I called that power the Force because I'm a Star Wars nerd and I love that stuff. But today, it's Jesus Christ. And there's no doubt in my mind who it is. I couldn't have asked for a better group of guys that came out. My first sponsor in that program was an ordained minister who never relapsed, never been to prison, never done drugs. Polar opposites. But when we talked about drinking, we were 2 peas in a pod. And he gave me the flexibility and the freedom to experience what God had in store for me. When God's got work, the walls come down. And I got just as busy and active as I could, doing what I could in that 12-step program in that prison. And I began to experience those things that happen: hope, happiness, freedom, in an environment where that stuff is not conducive. My life was revolutionarily changed inside of there. And that's all fine and dandy, but the question was how do you take this home? And so I did 7 years, 11 months, 14 days, not that I was counting, on that 10-year sentence. And on December 9th, 2009, they let me go home. And I've just been as busy and active in that fellowship as I can be. Tonight I'll be in a treatment center in Wimberley, Texas, carrying the same message. Next weekend I'll be on that same penitentiary, in that same meeting with some of those same guys whose parole officers aren't even born yet, but who are just as free as you and I are today because they have experienced what God has. I think it's an absolutely amazing thing. I don't do this stuff because I'm a dedicated idiot. I do it because it's the thing that keeps the fires lit. In 1 Peter 4:10, it says, each of you has been blessed with one of God's many wonderful gifts to be used in service to others. So use your gift well. It's already been given to us. No matter how far down the scale that I've been, I can see how my experience can be of benefit to somebody else. In Colossians 3:23 and 24, it says, whatever work you do, do it with all your heart. Do it for the Lord and not for men. Remember that you get your reward from the Lord, and that and He will give you what you receive, that you are working for Lord Christ. Those are the what and the why. I have a few minutes, so I'm going to show you this little video about what life's like today. This is my evidence. The song's called Evidence by Josh something or other. I keep forgetting. But it's not Brolin, because that guy's an actor. Baldwin. Maybe it's Baldwin. But anyway, the chorus says, I see your evidence. I see the evidence of your goodness all over my life. And he says it over and over again. And so here's the evidence of his goodness in my life. and I am blessed beyond measure today. If I only got the things that I asked for or that I wrote down when I left that penitentiary, I would have sold myself short. I wanted to be in a community. I wanted to own a home. We own our home today, but our first house was in an HOA, and we're not ever going to do that again. Believe it or not, I wrote that I wanted to pay taxes because I had never paid taxes before. We paid a little over 20 grand this year, and we don't ever want to do that again either. But I wanted a family, and I've been blessed beyond measure. Not just with the wonderful woman that I'm married to and the family that I have inherited through them, but with all of you guys. I literally came to Cross Point for the cookies. I'm not going to lie to you. I love cookies. But this environment has been so welcoming and so loving that I once again feel loved and secured and safe. So I wanted to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to come up here and share just a little bit of my story. Like I said, anytime I get to be an active participant in somebody's life, it is an honor and a privilege to do this stuff. And so Will's going to come back out and sing some country for us. I'm just kidding. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, buddy. Wow. So that's inspiring to hear about a God that never gives up, isn't it? But we've got to respond to that God that never gives up. And you responded, Dylan. And that's why you've got a true story to be able to share. So thanks for coming and sharing and being vulnerable with us. Well, I've asked Dylan to head out to our next steps area so that he can just be available to you guys. And so if anybody wants to go by and just say hi to him, give him a word of encouragement, maybe even you're just going to be at a point where you're going, I need some help, and maybe you're the guy that can give me the help that I need. So thanks for being here, and thanks for being willing to be available right afterwards. Well, this has been an incredible series for us. In fact, I've actually had somebody already share with me, hey, I've got a true story, and if you ever have an opportunity to do this again, I'd be willing to share mine. And it's powerful when we get to hear from each other what it is that God has brought us through. And so we want to be able to capture stories from people. And it doesn't have to be as ugly as what some of these stories have been and what they've gone through or what they've been a victim of. But it's just be about you sharing your story. And so if you're somebody that you'd be willing to do that and just have an interest in that you can just text the word true story to 210-817-8121. Maybe you just need to take a photo of that so that you can just kind of reflect on that, because so you're not going to go, what was that again? What was I need to text? So that you would be able to have that so that you could come and you would have an opportunity to be able to share with your church family. Well, when it comes to getting to the end of a message, it's always great if we have a way that we can talk about it with others, a way that we can begin to grow through this. So we got some talk about questions for you, and all three of them are great, but I want to call attention to this third one with you. When you consider your lowest point, how far removed is it from today? And what is something that you need to share that you haven't had the courage to because you weren't convinced that you'd get the love and support you need? That maybe for you, you need to be vulnerable today. And you need to have this conversation with somebody else. And maybe for you, my prayer and my hope is that how far removed, you're really far removed from your lowest point. But maybe some of you just got through it. Maybe some of you are in it. And maybe some of the people closest to you don't even know it because you've walled it off so well. And you just need to get real with people that love you and care about you. And if you can use this little question as a way to just begin that conversation, they'll be able to give you, to know that they need to be giving you the love and support that you need. Our care team's going to be here at the front. If you have a prayer need, a prayer request, we'd love to be able to pray with you and care for you and love on you. So just be willing to come up and do that. And next week, we're starting a new series. Doesn't sound really exciting. In fact, it sounds kind of boring. But I think it's going to be an incredible series for us. And what's it called? The Holy Bible. Just straight up. And we're just going to be spending some time looking at really, what is this for? How did we get it? Can we really trust it? And what would happen to our lives if we really allowed it to be the authority over our lives? It's going to be a great series. And I'm going to ask you to do something that we don't normally do, not many of us. And I'm going to ask you to bring a Bible with you. Bring one of these things that you can start writing in and circling and underlining and using some of the margins so that you can begin to take some notes of some things that I think will have the power to transform your life. And so I'm going to invite you to bring a Bible with you when you come to church. And invite somebody to come. And might go, I don't really do church. I really don't even know much about it. Well, you know what? It's a great place to come and just begin to discover about a God that loves you and accepts you right where you are. Invite them so that we can begin to love on them together. You guys have a great week. Bring your Bible. Bring a friend. We'll see you guys next Sunday.